Yeah. Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Whipple podcast, VP-podden. It's as usual me, Johan Cato, and Tobbe Christiansen. We'll talk to you, and today we have a visit from over the seas, overseas. Harold Card, who is experienced amstaff breeder from when, Harold? When did you start with the American Staffordshire Terrier?
Staff, 1978.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Champion Slavo McCarthy.
Yeah. So it's 47 years ago soon. Yeah.
Well, sounds about right.
Yeah, that's nice. I was born in 79, so you started earlier than I've been on this earth. Yeah.
20-year-old, so
Yeah. you have a little bit more experience.
well, if nothing else, old age does give you experience.
Yeah, it's like that. Yeah. But as I understand it, the amstaff wasn't the first breed that you was involved with.
No, I started with English Bulldogs.
Yeah.
And I graduated from college in 1972, and I was always drawn to the English Bulldog. So I got an English Bulldog in May of '72, and I must have had 18 litters of English Bulldogs.
Yeah.
I had my last one in the early '80s, and the problem is the English Bulldog acted like an amstaff, or an amstaff acted like the English Bulldog, but the Bulldogs had so many health problems.
Okay.
And I actually had some functional English Bulldogs. They'd actually pull down a horse, a cow, or a pig by the nose.
Okay.
Actually, I've had some English Bulldogs that were probably more functional than a lot of the amstaffs I've had.
Oh.
Yeah, it's hard to believe, but I think most of our ability in the amstaff does come from the Bulldog.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the bull in the bull and terrier from almost 100 years ago or something like that, a little bit more than that, when they started to mix them. Yeah.
Well, it's amazing. The Bulldog wasn't used in bull baiting since 1835. But my first Bulldog, when she was an 8-week-old puppy, she was sitting in my lap. I'm driving by a cow farm, and she smelled the cows, and she started growling in her sleep. And then she woke up and leaped out of the car, and I grabbed her by the hind leg just before she escaped. But her entire life, she'd go right for the nose of a horse, cow, any big animal.
Yeah, it's really in the blood from them to.
Like the people wanted to rabbit.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. Yeah, it's been a debate a couple of years here in Sweden that the dog it becomes what you make of it, but they have some traits genetically as well. That's hard to get rid of. Yeah. Yeah, and then how come you got the amstaff in '78?
Well, I read Stratton's book in 1975, and I had never even heard of the amstaff before that. They weren't that popular except for with dog fighters. And so it came to me that I was probably breeding the wrong breed. I should be into amstaffs instead of bulldogs. So I started looking around, and I visited, I can't tell you how many kennels of pit bulls. I'd never even heard of the amstaff. And then a friend of mine from the gym, he had an amstaff, and he was going to Bermuda for a week, and he asked if I'd take care of it. And I did. and I fell in love with it. It was just a wonderful, wonderful dog. And so I went to the breeder that he got it from, and the guy's name was Joe Chapin, and he had expert dogs at the time. And he had that dog KO, who was a pit champion and never finished the show championship, but he was only shown twice in the 2 5-point majors against Sligo McCarthy. So he was a pretty good dog. So I didn't buy a puppy off of KO at first. I bought a puppy off of Sligo McCarthy. And I wasn't happy with that one. It didn't have the temperament I wanted. So I went back and I bought a female off of him in 1981 that was out of the dog KO. And she turned out to be exceptional. Yeah. One of the best ones I've ever had.
Interesting. Yeah. So what was the first dog? What was the fault, to say?
He was very soft.
Okay, yeah.
He was good looking, but he was fearful.
Yeah.
Very, very fearful. If you gave him a harsh correction, harsh correction meaning if you tugged on his leash, he just fell apart, go right to the ground. And so I placed him with my father. My father wanted him. And then his name was Odin, Iron Man's Odin. And then the second bitch was Iron Man's Valkyrie's Vengeance. And she was a black and tan brindle trim. And very sound, very outgoing. She'd climb a tree after a cat. She'd dive head first off the diving board into a pool and swim underwater. Just phenomenal bitch.
Yeah.
And we bred her a couple of times. Got some nice pups out of it. Kept a male out of it named Rebel Yell. Cad's Tacoma Rebel Yell. And realized that the thing I liked about her was the Tacoma in the background. Yeah. So I went from her to concentrating on the Tacoma line, and I was able to get a male in 83 or 4 from Wayne Brown, and that was my Cad's Tacoma Jake. And then that same year, I got a pure Tacoma female from Marshallwood in Florida, and that was Cad's Tacoma Tornado. And basically, that was the beginning of my Tacoma line.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I lost the expert Tacoma part. I didn't think that that line would ever disappear, because that's all that was in New England at the time, was those expert dogs.
Yeah.
And then by the time I realized that they were all gone, it was too late.
But I'm a little bit. I'm not that read into the Tacoma line, but that did exist when you started. The Tacoma line, I'm not that knowledgeable about that, but that did exist before you started breeding, or?
The Tacoma line was started by a man in Willimantic, Illinois, named Charles Doyle.
Yeah.
And he was a dog fighter. And then what he did was he took dogs from Al Brown, who was a famous dog fighter, that had Brown's Tacoma Jack. Yeah. And he was a 14-time pit winner. And he bred Tacoma Jack to two of the blackjack daughters. So Charlie Doyle got a male and a female from Doyle, and he kept two separate lines. He kept the Confield line, which is basically Corvino blood, and he kept as pure as he could the Tacoma line. And he died in he bred in the late 40s. He bred Corvinos, Braddock, into his Tacoma line. So basically, his gene pool was Feely, Blackjack, Tacoma Jack blood, and Corvino Braddock. And then he used the Feely blood for the Tacoma crosses, and he used the Tacoma for the Feely crosses. Yeah. But he kept the two lines pretty much separate. And when he died, the dog fighter Joe Labe was a friend of his and grew up in the neighborhood and worked for Doyle as a kennel boy. So he came to get the dogs from the widow after, but dog fighters had come in and stolen all the Doyle's dogs during the funeral, replaced them with curs. So the Tacoma line got bred into just about every other pit dog line there was, I believe, with fake papers.
Yeah.
But there were some Doyle dogs in the yard of Mike Ferris, who was a referee dog fighter. So he bred a couple of generations of the crosses that Doyle made between the Feely blood and the Tacoma blood. And so the two bloodlines were pretty well mixed together by then. And then Pat Bojanowski in Chicago, he bought all of the dogs from Mike Ferris, and he fought them in the early 60s until he got arrested for dog fighting in 1970. And his by the time I found the Tacoma line, they were pretty much gone. And Wayne Brown did some breedings that preserved it, and a gentleman in Florida, he had a pure Tacoma bitch, and it was pregnant when he moved to Florida, and so he whelped the litter and kept the dog named Watch It out of that, and he bred Watch It to successive daughters for 3 times in a row, and then Marcia Wood bought a brother and sister from the last litter, and she bred those together, brother to sister. So there were 3 pups in that litter. I got Tornado, pure white bitch. Dave Keeler in Idaho took a male, called it Old Soldier. And Mike Rivera in Puerto Rico kept a female, Kate, which he later sold to, what was the guy's name? Oh, he had some Sertoma dogs. Jimmy Ryan. He sold the female to Jimmy Ryan. Jimmy Ryan bred Kate into his Sertoma line, which was a lot of Tacoma to start with. And I ended up using Old Soldier in my breeding program up in Ohio.
Yeah. And
so basically that's what I ended up with, the blood.
Yeah.
I'm really amazed. I'm just sitting and listening. I'm amazed that all the names and name of the dogs it's like 50 years ago, and you got them all.
Well, sometimes it takes me a minute to remember, but it's in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's called
Yeah, over
passion.
the years, I found some other Tacoma blood in the Chicago area where it was from. And a friend of mine, Bert Rodriguez, he got interested in the Tacoma line about the same time I did. And so, you know, I'd send him dogs, he'd send me dogs. I bought a couple from him that was similar to what I have, but different individuals, and to try and keep the line fresh. And but like any other line, you have to bring new blood in constantly, otherwise you end up with a lot of problems. So I bred in. Well, I mean, the original people in Chicago, they bred Tacoma to Ruffian Hercules Harwin. So that was the first outcross in the line. And then, let's see, my first outcross was breeding a half Tacoma bitch that I got from Dave Keelaher out of Old Soldier blood. And that bitch was bred to Ox Farmer, who was half Tacoma, down in Texas. And that was basically the pedigree of my Cod's Tacoma Soldier, which I'm frozen. I'm still breeding from him. He's been dead 30 years. And but let's see. And then I bred into Expert once, White Rock at the time, and I try and go after an outcross. I take the one that acts and looks the most Tacoma and breed it back into line bred Tacoma.
Yeah.
Do that for a couple generations and then do another outcross.
Yeah. That sounds intelligent to do that, to keep
the hard part is nobody, at least in this country, is breeding for the traits that I was breeding for.
Oh.
So in the last 20 years, it's difficult to find an outcross that you don't lose your gameness and your physical ability, and I don't worry about the physical type so much, but the mentality. The dogs, the amstaff from show lines is totally different than the dogs I was breeding.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I get a feeling that it's been changed, especially the mentality of the dogs so much. Maybe the last at least 20 years, when it's pretty much only show. So the gameness is pretty much gone in a lot of dogs today.
Well, I'll tell you the truth. As I get older, I realize that nobody wants the kind of dogs I breed. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And you know, I can't sell them to show people because they'll attack the dog in the show. Yeah. And I can't sell them to a pet home unless the person is very knowledgeable and wants an aggressive dog or a protective dog, because the dogs I was breeding were very, very protective of the home. So I had to be very careful where I placed puppies. So I started changing my breeding program about 15 years ago, and I pretty much bred out most of the dog aggression out of the pups I've been selling for the last few generations. And they don't have a lot of protective instinct either. They're just nice dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought out my soldier dog 2 years ago, and I had some people want my old type of dog. So Sean Nowicki, he has a female that's very nice, black and tan. I sold him, and she actually is the fastest amstaff in the country. I never heard of the sport before. It's called fast cat, where you race amstaffs.
Oh,
Never heard of such a thing, but he's the top dog.
yeah. So it's kind of a speed sport. They will run a certain distance and the
Yeah,
fastest wins. Yeah. Okay.
I'd never heard of it before, but
Oh.
yeah,
No, I've
there's
seen it in forums, and I've been like, "What is that?" So
Yeah. They're always a way to compete with the dogs.
yeah,
so,
I gave a dog to another woman, and she's done scent work with it and agility with it. Uh, I've had a lot of my dogs in obedience. I uh, I gave a dog to a man in Connecticut that he had the top obedience pit bull. He won the 2005 what is it, the Working Pit Bull Terrier Club of America Nationals. I was judging the confirmation for it, and he came up with was Cad's Blue Star, and she was already a CDX at the time, and he won the national title for the Working Pit Bull Terrier Club of Obedience in obedience. He beat Larry Hansen, who was the top dog in the country at the time. And about the same time, I had put a French ring title on my Cad's Tacoma swinging dick. And as far as I know, there were only two amstaffs to have a title in ring sport. One was a dog from Canada named Tunny, and the other one was my dick.
nice.
But nobody cares about working dogs either.
No. It's all pets and show dogs now. It's hard to get the hold of a working dog that's not a German Shepherd or something like that. Yeah. But when you started back in the late 70s and early 80s,
Keep and take care of. And so I've never been able to keep more than, I have a 10-dog license, but normally I wouldn't go over 5 dogs. And it's hard to have a breeding program with any kind of backup or diversity when you're limited. It's one thing I've always been kind of jealous of with the ruffian community, because there's so many people that are breeding basically the same bloodline. So if you want an outcross from your yard, you can have an outcross without going totally out.
yeah, exactly.
You have a lot more variability that you can choose from.
Yeah.
But
how big is the Tacoma line today, you should say?
well, I'd say there's only one line bred female left in the world.
Oh,
Yeah, so it's not very big.
certainly not big.
I've got 2 line bred males frozen.
Yeah.
And I shipped a couple of very good dogs to Europe. Well, I shipped 1, 2, 3, 4 to Europe.
Yeah.
That were very good. 2 went to Tiziano Milani, and he's out of the dogs now. And 1 went to Alberto Sani, who gave up the dogs. And 1 went to, I can't think of the man's name now. but he had the dog Bouncer that Elodie ended up with,
Okay.
or she bred to him. So they got used, but they didn't get, well, Alberto did a line breeding with one of a female that was line bred. But I don't think anybody kept up with the breeding, line breeding of them.
Yeah. Is it because of the temperament of the lion, or what is
Well,
the
they're
reason?
still dogs. I mean, some of them could be the line bred ones, but they're high energy,
Yeah.
dog aggressive, and I don't know. People. I mean, we don't. I think this year in the United States, there's only, well, in 2024 there was only 155 amstaffs born in the United States.
Oh.
So it's not a popular breed in this country, and most of the people, there's a few people that just want them for pets, and the show people, they have their own idea what line they want. Depends who their mentor was or what they've been breeding. So they all have their own idea what they want to show. And
That sounds crazy, really. I mean, that's like the number of amstaffs registered is like the Doberman in Sweden or something, numbers like that. And yeah, the US is quite much bigger than that. So
I mean, Russia, I don't know about numbers lately, but Russia would have 25,000 born a year. Italy was up to 7,000 one year. France was 5,000. The Netherlands was 800. And in America, I don't know if we've ever gotten over 500.
That's quite
so
interesting
weird.
because it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think the big thing is in America you can have the pit bull terrier,
yeah.
and I think in Europe, some places they don't want you. They want FCI, is it?
Yeah.
And in order to be FCI, you have to be an amstaff.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and it's actually quite hard to get a pure pit bull here. So, yeah, but I presume the pit bull population in the US is quite big.
But I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, the pit bull population or the amount of pit bulls born is quite larger than the amstaffs.
Well, I don't know any firm numbers on pit bulls, but the registered pit bulls in the U.S. is 3 times more than Labrador retrievers and Goldens together, which are 2 of the most popular breeds.
Wow.
And that doesn't even count the unregistered pit bulls.
No.
So, I mean, there's two registries, ADBA and the UKC, and then there are so many just unregistered pit bulls. They're everywhere.
Yeah, it's
popular dog in the US by far.
And I think just unregistered pit bulls or unregistered dogs are getting more and more common all over the world, it feels like.
Well, I mean, people like pit bulls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you started in the late 70s, early 80s, it was the difference between an amstaff and a pit bull. It wasn't that big then.
No, the amstaff had a lot more pit bull type characteristics for sure.
Yeah.
And you could find you could take an amstaff from most lines and you could put it in a pit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they do as well as a Colby bred dog or a Carver bred dog, but they put on a show.
Yeah.
The big change came when most of the early breeders were men, and I think men have more of an appreciation for blood sport or for gameness or for the warrior, whereas women that's a big turnoff. And now I don't know of too many men that breed amstaffs.
No, it's not that many.
Well, I can only think of one that produces good dogs anymore in this country. That would be Scott Lucas, and I don't know if he's still producing or not. I thought Dick Pascoe was a pretty good breeder. He didn't select for gameness or aggression but he didn't select against it either. If he had a good show dog, he didn't care if it was dog aggressive or protective.
So the gameness was that the main character that you bred on in the early days?
It's awfully hard to really test for gameness unless you're a dog fighter.
Yeah.
I've always felt that there are some signs of gameness. For example, the spring pole. A dog who's willing to work a spring pole for an hour. That shows something in the dog's temperament. I took up French ring sport. I've only titled one dog, but I've trained 3. And, in Schutzen, the decoy, they call him a helper because he feeds the bite to the dog. He really is helping the dog with the bite. Whereas in French ring, the decoy is got a stick and he's hitting the dog with the stick as it comes at him. And he does everything in his power, they call it in his skeeve, where they spin around, they make it so the dog misses the bite.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of pressure in French ring on the dog. And most dogs, even in Malinois, they can't do it. There's so much pressure on the dog. So I kind of felt that was a sport where a game dog would have some advantages. And but as far as deep gameness, I mean, in neither of those sports is the dog in a lot of pain or exhausted or fighting for his life. So, I mean, a way to test for true gameness would be in the pit.
Yeah.
And
it reminds me a little about the episode with Marco.
I have had quite a few of my dogs go to dog fighters. And so that was one way that I could test for gameness without actually getting involved in the sport myself. Because I could send them dogs and they would test the dogs themselves and then report back to me so I know which combinations produce what. And in several instances, I got dogs back that were line bred Tacoma after they had been pit champions.
Yeah. You were saying something, Tobbe.
Yeah, it reminds me a little about the episode we did with Marco in Holland about testing the dogs and find something to do with them and how they created. Yeah. What's the name of it now?
DSA. It's a
DSA,
special
yeah.
sport to pretty much try to test Staffordshire Bull Terrier primarily, and to not fight them, but still test their agility and a lot of it's like what's it called? I forgot the English word, but in track and field they do multiple sports. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But for and they do but it's still, as you said, Harold, it's hard to test for real gameness without actually.
Well, I've had a couple of young pups that went to ground after woodchucks. They actually dug down in the hole and pulled a woodchuck out. But I don't know if that's true gameness or not.
No.
But it shows attitude at least.
Yeah. But if we put the gameness aside a little bit, because it's a trait that is nice in theory, but it's as we concluded here, it's hard in reality to make sure. But what was the other type of traits that you focused on? And let's start there.
I've always, ever since the beginning, I've focused on trainability, problem solving and intelligence. Let's see, I really like a dog who is a natural guard dog. A lot of guard dog trainers, they train them in defense, where they make the dog afraid for his life, and then he'll be aggressive to people. But I've always been of the idea that the dog has to have an instinct to be protective, and you want them to have a sense of what's real. What you don't want them to be afraid or suspicious. You want them to just be alert and watchful. And I was lucky enough to have that instinct in the line that I could select from.
Yeah.
And, the dog aggression, I really didn't care how much dog aggression they had, because it's easy to get the dog aggression back. All you need is one parent with the dog aggression, and half the litter will have the dog aggression at least. But that wasn't as important to me as the stability of temperament, the fearlessness, the biddability, just the whole mental attitude, most of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite interesting when we talk to people who've been in the breed for a long time, and not only the amstaff, but other breeds as well. But that the mentality is so much more important than the physical appearance of the dog.
Me, it's always been that way.
Yeah. And that's,
well, I've always told people life is too short to have an ugly dog. But, I always select for a dog who's pleasing to the eye, but not if he's truly stupid.
No. Yeah.
My first Tacoma dog was Pat's Tacoma Jig. He was an awfully good-looking dog, but he was the dumbest dog I think I've ever had. I tried obedience training him. I spent months going over just basic obedience, and it's like every day was the first day I was training him. He never remembered a thing. But then the little female that I got at the same time that was pure Tacoma, I trained her for 1 or 2 weeks, And then family life got in the way, and I stopped training, and she was a kennel dog for her life. And then after the house dog passed away, I brought her in, and she was 9 years old. And, she remembered from when she was a very small puppy, all her obedience. Sit, stay, come, heel. But the big dog, he was truly stupid.
I only have had 3 amstaffs, but my experience is that the female dogs are a little bit more intelligent than the male dogs. Is that your experience as well?
Oh, no, it hasn't been. I mean, I've had different ranges. Some dogs are escape artists. They can solve the latch on a crate or the latch on a kennel. You have to make it really. Well, this one bitch, Tornado, the little white bitch. She learned that she could flip the latch on the chain link kennel with her nose and get out. So I moved the latch up toward the top of the 6-foot kennel. So she discovered that she could climb up the fence and flip the latch. So then I stuck a stick of wood through the little hole to lock it. So she climbed up the fence, braced herself, took her teeth, pulled the stick through the hole, flipped up the latch, and escaped. And the only way I could keep her in was to use the little end of a leash with a thumb latch. And then she, having had no thumbs, couldn't figure that out. And I've got this little male in the house now. He's 6 months old, and I've got some really nice, expensive crates. They're called Smith built, and they have 5/16 steel bars and nice latches and grates, and they're a real convenient kennel. But normally the dogs have, there's 2 latches for the door, and they lock. But this little guy, he's figured out how to pull the latch sideways and then flip it up and get out. So I have to chain it shut.
Yeah.
And I use a spring latch on a short piece of chain to chain it together, because otherwise he'd be out in 2 seconds.
Yeah, that's hilarious. It's nice to have a intelligent dog until they actually use their intelligence a little bit too much. Yeah. So you have a 6 months old, you said?
Yeah. Right now I just have 4. I have a pure White Rock bitch. Came from Scott Lucas. All from frozen semen. It's Indie blood, bred to Bandit blood, bred to Scrim's White Rock Chasky, and then brother sister breeding for this one. So it's the tightest. Call name is Gringo on Chasky, and I've always been a fan of Gringo. So I decided I'd take her to breed into the Tacoma. Yeah. And she's 10 years old. And then I've got it's the last line bred Tacoma bitch. She's 6. And then I've got that Chasky bitch bred to my soldier dog. He was born in 95. And so I kept a male out of that. He's a handsome boy. He's smart, but he doesn't show any drive. No dog aggression, no protectiveness. And then I bred him to the last line bred bitch, and I got this little male, and he's pretty cold. just a happy little dog so far. Yeah, true black, stocky.
Yeah.
But the problem I'm having now, and that makes it very hard, is I did most of my breeding before ataxia was identified. And there's no test, and nobody had heard of it. And just last year, or 2 years ago, there was a new test came out for a disease called progressive retinal atrophy, where PRA, where the dog will go blind when he's anywhere from 4 years old to 10 years old. And we had one dog in 2000 and born in 2011, Tacoma 100 proof. And he was the first one I did any real showing with because he wasn't dog aggressive. And I got quite a few points on him. But then he started going blind. And I took him to a few vets, and they said, well, it's not inherited. It's, he's got some retinal atrophy, but it's nothing to worry about. It's not inherited. It's probably, just something because of allergy to dog food. He had parvo pretty bad as a puppy, so maybe it was from the drugs he was on with that. So I bred him a few times, and I sold him to a guy who bred him. And but then I started noticing other dogs having eye problems in the line. So now they've identified what it is, and they have a test for DNA testing. And turns out that the dog I used the most, Soldier, he was a carrier for both ataxia and PRA. And 100 proof I have frozen. He was affected with PRA. And let's see, the White Rock bitch is clear. The son of Soldier, the PRA carrier. The little line bred bitch I have is clear. And this little male I have is clear. But I want to use Soldier and 100 proof again, but I have to make sure I have a clear bitch. Right now, the only clear bitch I have is the line bred one, and she's only been in heat twice, and I was able to catch her once. So I don't know if I'll ever catch her again in heat.
No,
So,
she's only been in heat twice in 6 years. Has she only been in heat twice in 6 years?
Another issue with the line, that first inbred bitch I had, she came in heat 2 times, and then she never came in heat again. Let's see now, I've had a bitch, it was one of my favorites, Ginger. She had 1 heat when she was a year old and never came in heat again. And it's really amazing. I remember I was cleaning her kennel one day, and she started humping my leg, and she was 6 years old, but never been in heat, so I could catch her. So I was kicking her away, and on a whim, I said, "Geez, I'm going to try inseminating her artificially." So Soldier was still alive then, so I collected him. And as I'm doing the insemination, I'm thinking to myself, this is really stupid. You're inseminating a bitch that isn't in heat. Nobody ever hears about this. And so I noticed a couple months later, she's getting kind of fat. So I start cutting back on her food. Well, it turns out she was pregnant. There's no swelling, no bleeding, no sign of heat, but she's pregnant. So I was there the 63 days after the insemination. She had 4 pups, but no maternal instinct. She killed the first pup that came out. And I was there for the second pup, and she attacked it, but didn't hurt it too bad. I had to have a couple stitches put in it. And then she had 2 more after that, and I bottle fed the litter, and I kept a male out of that. And that was the father of my 100 proof dog. And then 2 years later, Ginger the bitch, she started humping my leg again. So this time I said, well, I bet you I could catch her again. And I did. I used swinging dick on her, and we had 2 pups.
Yeah.
And I kept both pups. One of them I gave to a guy in Connecticut to breed, and he ended up, he lost it somehow. It died. And then the other one I kept, Sparky, Tacoma live wire. She never had a heat in her life. And every year she'd stop humping my leg, and I kind of knew that I could probably breed her artificially and get something from her. Yeah. But I'm saying, well, why do I want to continue breeding a line of dogs that never come in heat?
Yeah, exactly.
So she died, never having been bred.
No.
And you know, it's sad because these are some of the best females I ever had.
Yeah.
Which one didn't come in heat? And another thing, in my first 10 or 15 years of breeding, a lot of times the bitches I kept wouldn't be in heat. And but I'd have dogs I sold that would come into heat, and then the people wanted to come back and breed to my dogs. So there's a couple of instances I did that, and I'd take the pup for the breeding. And a couple of times after I did the breeding, the guy was having a hard time selling them, so I bought the whole litter. And it never occurred to me, you know, that I was wondering why did the dogs I sell come into heat, but the ones I keep don't come into heat? And then when I was going to the repo vet to have Soldier collected, the vet was a famous boxer breeder, and he was having problems with his bitches coming into heat. So what he had to do to get them to come into heat, he had to place his bitches with a family where it was the only dog, and it was a house dog, and then they'd come into heat. But my dogs were all kennel dogs. So they didn't come into heat. And so then, once I caught on to that, I started bringing them in the house, and then eventually they'd come into heat.
That's very interesting. It's quite amazing that once you take them into the house and they become house dogs, then they come into heat.
Yeah. Come into heat. Yeah. Oh, a funny story. The best stud dog I ever had was the one that went blind, 100 proof. His call name was Whiskey. And, you know, I had this black bitch that came from Wayne Brown in Texas, Black Susie, I called her. And I swear that she wasn't in heat. And I used to let them run loose in the yard because they were both good with each other. They weren't dog aggressive. So I'd let them run loose in the yard while I was cleaning the kennel. I turned around and he stuck to her. And I go, what the hell? She's not even in heat. Well, he figured she was. And so he bred her, and we had a nice litter from her. And then not long after that, I had a very, very, very dog aggressive bitch. And I couldn't let her near any other dog, male, female, nothing. And I'd never been able to catch her in heat. no swelling, no bleeding. And so I was driving. I have quite a large building out behind the house. That's 46 by 60. It's a shop I used. And so I had some kennels off the side of that. So I was driving up to the shop one day, and I noticed that Whiskey had torn into the kennel, right through the chain link, into the Joliet's kennel, who was very dog aggressive. And I'm saying, oh, Jesus, this is bad. And they seem to be getting along pretty good. So I was on the phone with Scott Lucas, and I said, Jesus, Whiskey just tore into Joliet's kennel. And he said, he probably bred her. And I said, no, she wasn't even in heat. And sure enough, he and his son Braddock. I've had dogs that, to doing that, I very seldom do natural breedings because of the dog aggression. So I always did artificial. And once in a while, I try and do a natural breeding if it looked like they wanted to. But for the most part, the male, he'd be humping the head and humping the side and couldn't find his way in, and it was just wasted effort. But both Whiskey and Braddock, if you put a bitch in front of them that was in heat, it wouldn't be 10 seconds he was tied.
Yeah.
They just had a technique that was pretty good.
They really knew what they were doing. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't mess around.
No.
It was one sniff and bang.
That's really, really funny. It's amazing though that the male dogs, they can really
thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, exactly. The male dogs can really sense when they are in heat. Even though they aren't showing anything, they can smell it. And if you have a real stud dog, they know what to do.
I always had at least one male who, wouldn't attack a female if they were in heat. And I never did with the amstaffs. I never did progesterone or smears. With the bulldogs, I always did smears of the vaginal epithelial cells. And I could tell by the quantification of the cells when they were coming into heat, leaving heat, or in heat. And I was pretty good at it. But I never needed to with these because male would tell me every time when they're ovulating. So I would have a male that I'd have chained up, and I'd bring the bitch over to see if she's standing and see how he acted. And usually I could catch it pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a smart way to do it because they don't always show the sign. Yeah. So how many breedings or successful breedings do you think you have done throughout the years?
I guess 50.
50, yeah.
Staffs. I've had 18 litters of bulldogs, 4 litters of Great Danes, 2 litters of bull mastiffs. I'd say 50 to 60 with amstaffs.
Yeah. Approximately a little bit more than one a year. So it's no.
Well, what I'd do is I'd skip a year sometimes, but then I had a few years where I did 3.
Yeah. Yeah, and if I understand you correctly, it's been harder and harder to find families or find buyers for them.
Well, there's a couple of problems. One is there aren't many ways of marketing online. I mean, we have Facebook Marketplace, but they won't allow you to sell puppies on Facebook Marketplace.
Oh.
For some reason, purebred puppies are evil. Rescue dogs are good.
Yeah.
So you can't sell them on Facebook. You can't sell them on Craigslist, which is another online marketing tool. And I've tried some of the online puppy sites, but I never had anybody contact me from them. I found, what was it, AKC Marketplace. I've had real good results from AKC Marketplace. So the last 3 litters, I haven't had any problems selling pups. But the other thing too is the last 3 litters, I haven't been breeding for high drive. So I've got a male that's living with my sister, who is just, it could be a beagle for the way it acts. Totally non-aggressive, non-protective, happy with everybody. And so I've bred on my last, not recently, but I used him 3 or 4 times, and that really took a lot of the starch out of it. So I could place his pups anywhere.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to worry about, somebody having their, Shih Tzu torn apart.
No, exactly.
You tell people, that come and want a pet, that they have to be careful if they shouldn't let it around another dog, and they don't listen.
No, it's always the same. It's always the issue to let them off leash and don't
They
have
want to go to a dog park. They want to, they want to have another dog in the house or a cat. And,
yeah, that could be a big problem.
Yeah. Years ago, we had, we had the ads at the back of the newspapers.
Yeah.
Now, nobody gets a newspaper, and if you do get a newspaper, there's no classified ads. And we once a week in New England, we had this book called The Want Advertiser. And if I had a litter of pups, I could put them in on Tuesday, and it was $10, I think, to advertise a litter, and I'd have them all sold by the weekend.
Oh.
Yeah, and I'd advertise them as pit bulls.
Yeah.
And they'd sell as fast as I could put them in.
Yeah. Did you ever register the dogs anywhere else than in the AKC?
When I first started, the expert dogs were registered UKC and AKC.
Yeah.
And so I could single register them with the ADBA. So up until 85, my dogs were all triple registered.
Okay.
And then, what was it? When I picked up that female from Marsha Woods, she wasn't UKC registered. And in order to single register with the UKC, I would have had to take her down to Virginia to have her inspected by this woman that I knew, and I didn't think that she was that knowledgeable. But she was a UKC rep of some kind. So I would have to take my dog down to be inspected 10-hour ride to have her inspected and say it was really a pit bull. So I decided I don't need UKC registration. And then I kept the ADB registration because a lot of my males, people wanted to use them on their pit dogs.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'll let you breed for this dog. And they were ADBA registered. But then, I don't know, mid to late 90s, I just kept the AKC, didn't bother with the others. Now you can't single register with the ADBA as a pit bull. It has to be as an amstaff.
Okay. So okay, I understand. But up till like late 90s, it was you were able to register them in ADBA as pit bulls.
Yeah, and a little bit of trivia is the last amstaff to be registered as a pit bull with the ADBA was Wayne Brown's dog Flash. That was double bred on my 100 proof.
Okay.
Yeah, Wayne was a big fan of the ADBA.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
It's amazing how many kennel clubs there are, and all of them have their kind of the direction is pretty much the same, but it tilts in different sub directions pretty much. Yeah, we haven't talked anything about the size of the dogs, because at least my experience is the latest dog that I had, it was a big dog. I'm not sure, he was pretty much 30 kilos. That makes 65, 66 pounds, something like that.
I'll have an inbred litter, and I'll have a female in it that will mature at 25 pounds, and I'll have a male in it that will be 90 pounds.
Oh.
And I've never really selected for small, but the females that I keep anywhere from 38 to 44 pounds.
Yeah.
And 17 inches high.
Yeah.
And I try to select males in the 18, 19 inch range. And I don't like them too heavy, and I don't like them too lean. I like a big chested dog with a lot of musculature. So they'll usually go 55 to 65.
Yeah.
I have kept, like the dog Braddock I was mentioning. He was 21 at the shoulder, and he was probably 70, 75 pounds.
Yeah.
But he had some other good qualities that I overlooked the size.
Yeah, I'm just gonna, so 21, I'm just trying to make that into metrics, just to get some kind of
Well, let's see, a kilogram is 2.2 pounds.
Yeah.
A meter is 39.37 inches. Centimeter is half an inch.
Yeah, so 21 inches is 53 centimeters, and that so it's a big one. Yeah. It's even bigger than my male. It was 20 inches and 65 to 70 pounds. Yeah.
I don't mind a 20-inch dog.
No.
But it's funny, if you go into a show ring with an 18-inch dog, he looks tiny.
Yeah. It really
It's
does.
a little of the discussion we've had regarding the staffies too, because there's a lot of staffies showing up now who is like 19, 20 inches at shoulder, so really, really big.
Yeah, and it's because of BLS. There's a couple of countries here in Europe who has BLS, and then where the pit bull and the amstaff are forbidden, but the Staffordshire Bull Terrier is allowed, and so they tend to be bigger and bigger, so and resemble more of the amstaff and the pit bull. Yeah,
Well,
in size at least.
I think they're basically the same breed that have just gone in different directions. If you look at the pedigrees of the pit bull and the amstaff, 100 years ago, there was a lot of bull terrier blood introduced.
Yeah.
And the only Wayne Brown did a lot of work researching all the lines, and he found there's only one line of pit bull that didn't have any significant bull. In fact, there was none. The Colby dogs had no bull terrier introduced.
Oh.
But every other line was, some of it up to 20% was bull terrier blood.
Wow.
Yeah.
And Colby, that's we talk about
been a lot.
not 1920s or something like that. Colby dogs.
Colby, I was very friendly because Lou Colby lived about an hour from me here. And one of my neighbors just up the street, he was an older man, he just passed away, but he was 20 years older than me. He'd come by whenever he was going to go up to visit Lou, and I'd ride up with him. So I got to visit with Lou quite a bit. And his pedigrees will go back to 1880 with no other name on it but Colby.
Yeah.
No infusions of new blood. But he told me the secret is when you're gonna line breed that tight and not introduce new blood, you have to have as many males as females.
Yeah.
So he would have 25 females and 25 males.
Wow.
He had a big yard.
Yeah. He must have had. Yeah. And
Oh, he's an amazing man. He had game bred chickens. He really liked the gamecocks. And he had a huge barn with horse stalls. And the female would be in an insulated doghouse. And she'd whelp the litter in a horse stall that had 6 inches of sawdust in the floor. And that they'd have 7, 8 litters going at once. And nice dogs.
yeah. It sounds like a full-time job.
Well, I think he made a living off of it. You know?
Yeah.
He had a list for puppies.
Yeah. And this, yeah. And this is where in the US we're talking the northeast.
Yeah, he was in Newburyport, Massachusetts.
Okay, yeah.
I'm in Midville, Massachusetts. So I don't think he was like an hour away.
Yeah. And how's the winter there? Because it's a little bit south of us when we look at the map, but it's
you got the Gulf Stream going for you. You know?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we just had a cold snap here. Got down to 0 at night and teens during the day. But normally, the last year was a much milder than they used to be.
Yeah, because they are short-haired dogs, but when we talked to Thomas Mount, we were talking a little bit about the coat, and he said that they get a little bit more. A lot of them, because they live outside, get some heavier coats at least. Is that your experience as well?
I don't know if the coat gets any heavier. For years, I kept them in the blue plastic barrels, and the last 15 years, I started buying a kit from a company called Canine Condos that gives you a metal swinging door that you attach to the barrel, and it has vents and legs. And that seems to be the best doghouse I've seen. And I just make sure that I changed out the bedding once a week, because if they get wet bedding, it's cold. But no, I never had them suffer from the cold being outside. I think the secret to having outdoor dogs in cold is to just double their food and give them a lot of oil. I feed, but the outdoor dogs, they get about a half a cup of corn oil over their food.
Okay, yeah.
And as long as you give them calories, they stay in the cold very well.
Yeah.
You have to put more wood on the fire, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the issue for us as well. But we don't exercise enough to get rid of the calories, so we doesn't burn them. So we just put on isolation around the waist instead. Yeah.
The only speed I have now, Joanne, is slow.
Yeah.
That's my speed now.
Yeah, it's like me, slow or full stop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really nice.
I'm in the process now of building a kennel. I've been saying for 50 years I wanted the outdoor runs in a kennel. So I just put up a building 3 weeks ago, and I've got the swinging doors in the side, nest boxes, and so it's about time I finally get it right, you know.
Yeah. It's been a while in construction. Yeah. But you never had two dogs go together. They always were separated because of the aggression.
Well, I have had dogs that I could run together, but I would not trust them unless I was there with them.
No.
Because, I mean, all it takes is one of them to, you know, do something the other one doesn't like, and now it's game on.
Yeah. And they are quite capable when the game is on. Yeah.
There was a woman in Rhode Island I'd see at the shows, and she had two dogs, and they were loose in the house all the time. And, you know, I mentioned to her, you know, geez, I'd be afraid to leave them both running loose. At least put one of them in a crate, you know. She came home one day from work, and they were both all torn up.
Yeah.
Whatever.
It's really tragic, but it happens all the time in just that situation, as you just told us. Yeah.
Well, like today, I've got 4 dogs in the house because it's been so cold.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'll let one out at a time. But I haven't had any of them fight with each other before. But if I were to, you know, leave the house and have 2 of them or 3 of them together, I'd be taking an awful chance.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the hard parts about having these kind of breeds, because it doesn't need much for the ignition to start, so to speak, and then it's then anything can happen. Yeah. But I was thinking about
everybody.
Did you show your dogs, or did you what did you do with the dogs during the years?
Originally,
No, yeah, but all over these almost 50 years, did you go to a lot of shows, or was it? We talked
well,
about being a little bit, and
the English Bulldogs I showed every weekend.
yeah,
And the Great Danes, I did a lot of showing. And then, the first amstaff, I tried to show him, but he was so soft, you couldn't really, if you tugged on the leash to get him to go a little faster, he'd fall to the ground. He's terrible temperament. And then the second amstaff, I obedience trained her, and I tried going to some trials. But on the long down, there's always some other dog that wants to come up and sniff her. And then she'd rip into it. And so we didn't do any more obedience. And by that time, I was married and small children, and didn't want to spend the time taking the shows or the expense. And then as I got into the dogs, I did show Soldier, and he was very dog aggressive, but I had some techniques I could use, be last in line so nobody sneaks up behind him, and making sure he's not making eye contact with another dog. And so I put some points on Soldier, but it wasn't fun, because you had to be on your toes all the time. And then the ginger bitch, I killed, but when the judge went to look in her mouth, she'd bite the judge. And some of them don't like getting bit.
no, typically they don't. No.
Let me show you the bite. Oh no, I'm going to look at the bite. I said, no, let me show you the bite. No. So there was some close calls, and only one where she actually made contact. And Whiskey, he was a show dog, but when he started to go blind, he couldn't be shown.
No. But talking about biting, it's the rumor, at least, and I had this confirmed a couple of times, is that the old dogs, they had big teeth.
Tacoma dogs have big teeth?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The original big teeth. Yeah, because it's a lot of dogs now, they don't have the big teeth, but it's
the Ruffian dogs, for the most part, are missing teeth or have, smaller teeth. Yeah, and that's one thing that Wayne Brown did a breeding with his Tacoma Storm, and then for whatever reason he didn't want to raise the litter, so he gave the whole litter to Dick Pasco, because Dick owned the father, Jeff Farmer. And so I always thought that maybe Dick did the breeding because, kept off Farmer and used him so much because he thought he got bigger teeth from the breeding. But then Dick told me himself, he said, no, I didn't care about the teeth. I just liked, what was it? Ruffian Rudy was in Stormy's pedigree, and that was the father, the Indian Doc, and Indian Doc was his favorite dog. So that was the whole purpose. He didn't like Tacoma dogs at all.
There was a couple of White Rock breedings with Tacoma dogs.
Just one.
Just one. Okay.
Well, let me. There were White Rock breedings with Tacoma dogs, but not from White Rock.
Okay.
Dick
Yeah. Okay.
Dick never did a white Tacoma breeding with White Rock. That was Wayne Brown did it, and then he took the whole litter and put the White Rock prefix on it. So
Okay. Okay.
Tacoma wasn't a White Rock dog. He was brown,
Yeah.
the breeder, but
Yeah. Okay.
White Rock on the whole litter. But Scott Lucas in North Carolina, he his first dog was Amagita, who was out of Chasky and Danny. No, let me get this straight. He bought a bitch from Carla Restivo, who was out of Danny and a Chasky daughter. And then he bred that to White Rock stuff. And then he and I got friendly, and he started doing a lot of Tacoma from Wayne Brown. He got a male from Wayne Brown, and he bred that into his White Rock and his Danny daughter stuff. So most of your White Rock crosses are coming from Scott Lucas.
Okay.
And Scott was a hell of a good breeder.
Yeah. Is there a big difference between the breeders now and back in the 80s?
What was different?
Is there a big difference between the between the breeders nowadays and in the 80s, for example?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Different type of selection process, I'd say.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you stop and think about it, Cliff Ormsby fought dogs, Victor Casaneda fought dogs, Ed Ringgold fought dogs, Dr. Rolls fought dogs. The guy in California, Mount Haven, he was president of the club. I can't come up with his name. He was a dog fighter. Most of the people that bred amstaffs, with the exception of, let's say, Peggy Harper of Harwin, they were men, and if they hadn't fought dogs, they had a real soft spot of appreciation for the dog fight. And Peggy Harper, she was really, really friendly with Maurice Carver, who was one of the biggest dog fighters at the time. And there's quite a bit of supposition that she bred in a lot of Carver's dogs into the Ruffian, and Maurice bred a lot of Ruffian into his Carver dogs.
Yeah.
So that was the 60s. Pat Bojanowski was very prolific breeder in the Chicago area, and he didn't show at all. He just fought dogs.
Yeah.
And Richard Bell was a dog fighter. He had a lot of show champions, but basically he was a dog fighter. So yeah, no, it's totally different type of owner.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. Okay. So of course that the dog fighting makes a big difference in selection, and so.
Well, I won't say that because he had an appreciation for fighting dogs, he didn't select against it.
No.
Same thing with the Ormsbys. I won't say that Cliff Ormsby was a dog fighter, but he selected for dogs that could. In fact, his champion Velvet Buck was sent down to South Carolina to breed Theo Rayburn's bitch. And Theo had contracted a fight with Al Offer. And for some reason, Theo's dog couldn't be fought. He was sick or something happened. But he had Cliff Ormsby's male, the champion, down there. So he fought Ormsby's male, Velvet Buck, and won.
That's amazing. Yeah.
That's in your friend and mine back in '62, I think.
Okay. Yeah. And so if you could change everything, if you had like a magic wand, what would you change about the breed today? Or do you think it's good as it is?
Truth, I don't think I'd change anything. I mean, people breed what they want. I breed what I like, and I probably wouldn't have done as much breeding if other people were breeding to my taste.
Exactly.
But by breeding what I like, then I'm always assured of having something that I want. If other people had the same selection process as I did, I wouldn't have to worry about keeping so many dogs. But, it doesn't bother me. I know people get really offended when they see a dog that's overdone or, a different type, and they get all angry. But it doesn't bother me at all. Everybody does what they do.
Yeah, it's a free world in that sense. Yeah, it's
bloodlines. I would not even think of breeding into because of health issues, because of a lack of mentality, no drive, no physical attributes I like. I mean, they're pretty, but I've been in it long enough to know what's behind most bloodlines, and there's some I just stay away from.
Yeah. The experience is really good.
I'm getting to the end of my breeding because I don't know where I'd go for an out now.
No.
I mean, for a while, the Scott dogs and the White Rock, that was my last real outcross. And I've got a bitch coming from Peggy Dosta. I'll pick her up in March.
Yeah.
And she's Scott Lucas White Rock blended with my Tacoma and his Tacoma on the top side. And Peggy has some really nice blood that came from Tiziano Milani down in Italy. And I got to see Tiziano's expert dogs when I was down there a few times, and I was very impressed with the quality and type. So she crossed Tiziano's blood with my blood and Scott's blood. So I'm getting a female out of that, and that'll be my last outcross.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. It's been a long time breeding, and then to just to use the words, it's going to be the last outcross is it's quite big.
I mean, I've got 4 shots of Soldier, who my best producer of all time, and he produces just what I want. and I've got 2 shots of whiskey. And I got to be careful with that because I can't have the PRA. Well, they both are carrying stuff that I have to be careful with. So it'll take me a couple of generations to wash it out. And then by that time, I'll be in my 80s. What the heck am I doing?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the tough part about time. We have a limited amount of it. Yeah. So, but what has been the hardest part when it comes to breeding to preserve in the dogs? Has it been the courage, or what is it that is the hardest part, the hardest trait? Sorry, the hardest trait to preserve. Yeah.
Well, thank God we have the genetic testing for the diseases, because by the time you find out you have them, they're everywhere, and then it's a nightmare. But like with me, I try and select the type. Temperament is first, but there are little things like bite. The Tacoma-line has been plagued with undershot since the 40s. Fronts with easty-westy fronts. Tail sets in the Tacoma were always high. And then you spend 20 years fixing those traits and try not to lose what makes the dog, a Tacoma dog with his type and temperament. And then you say, okay, I fixed all of these things. You bring in another dog from outside that's Tacoma and doesn't have any of those issues. And then you find out that when you put them together, the whole litter has underbites and bad fronts, bad tail sets, and blue eyes and colors you've never seen before.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing is I'll take a dog that has a terrible front, or a terrible bite, or a terrible tail set, and breed it to pick up something in its temperament, and he never throws any of those other problems.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many polygenetic traits, and you have no idea how it's going to connect with something else, and it's flipping a coin.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not 1 + 1 is equals 2. It could be whatever. It's people unknown.
That have some good traits, because he might have something they don't like. But now you're throwing away all the good stuff with the bad stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's yeah. In that case, I'm really, really glad that I'm not a breeder, because it sounds very hard.
Well, think of all the things that you want to be paying attention to. Stupid things like color, mentality, color, type, size, bite, front, angles, movement, and how do you weigh each of those traits? Because you're not going to get a perfect dog every litter. So now, which one do you select? Which one do you want to breed to? It's an adventure.
Yeah. Yeah, I can assume. Yeah, it's adventure. Adventure is a really good word for it. Yeah.
I ever since I was a child, I was very interested in genetics, and in high school and college, I bred generations of hamsters to learn coat color inheritance, and there was nothing published at the time on coat color inheritance, but there was all these colors of hamsters. And so I figured it all out, figured out all the genes and how they put together, And I was thinking about writing a book on it, and then I realized that while I was doing all this, somebody else wrote a book on it.
Yeah, of course.
And I bred guppies when I was a child for color. So I just naturally fell into the breeding aspect of the bulldog.
Yeah. It feels like if you have that interest really from the beginning, from early ages, it's natural to
Yeah.
continue with the dogs, or even I
When I was
presume
in
it's
college,
sort of
I was a
horse
major,
breeders. It's just-
and I took a lot of genetics courses. I took 3 genetics courses, and we did a lot with fruit flies and all of that.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It takes a lot of studying to understand it, but it's very interesting.
Well, I don't think we're ever going to understand it, but with DNA now, it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, at least you can avoid some really big issues. At least you understand with the recessive genes, or with the ataxia and stuff like that, how to work that out, to breed out the health issues. So I think we've been on now for an hour and 45 minutes, and it's been a real honor, Harold, and it's
I said I about run out of things to say.
yeah. Yeah, it typically be like that when we've been talking so long, and it's but from our side, at least from my side, I'm pretty sure it feels the same. It's really interesting.
Yeah, well, we had that problem started, but it seems like we worked it out.
Yeah, we worked it out. Yeah, it's not a podcast from us if we don't have any technical issues. It's
been a real honor.
Yeah, it's been a real honor, Harold, and good luck with everything. And I hope you enjoy the new beach in March, and that you have a really nice ending of January here in a good 2025.
Send me the link to the video, and I can see it on the big screen.
Yeah, I will do that. Yeah, we'll fix that. Awesome. Thank you very much. Thanks. Bye. Yeah. Great. Big thank you to Harold, and that's the end of this episode. Please subscribe, like, comment, all for the algorithm, and that's all for today. Thanks, guys. Bye.